It's time for Ask the Mayor on KWBE with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan and a very special guest in with us today, Bob, Water Superintendent Steve Kelley. Steve, thanks for being in.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And one of the reasons we have Steve in today is it's kind of a sad one, but a congratulatory one, too. He may be, Bob, the most longest-serving employee of the city. By far.
Absolutely, but he's also one of the best.
Yeah. And, Steve, you're going to be calling it a day, coming up here in the not-too-distant future.
Yeah, May 3rd is the last day for me at the City Beatrice Water Department. So
I see. What do you think? Are you counting the days, or are you a little sad to leave, or what's the deal there?
Well, it might be a little strange. I've actually had to count up because originally I thought I'd retire at 66. So my count is well over about 1,700 plus days. But it's time now to give it up. I'm just about 71. So been with the department now, if you want to be exact, 51 years, 9 months, 17 days on May 3rd. So
you do have it counted up.
Yeah.
Talk about your department, how big a department, how loyal that group has been to you and the service to the city here.
Sure. When I first started, actually, there were 17 people on the department, mainly because we had to provide service for our wells and our well controls and our tank controls 24/7, and it all had to be done manually. Today we have 10 employees on the department, so we've cut staff by 7 over the years. We've eliminated those people that watch the well controls, and we've actually eliminated a couple meter readers because we went to an AMI system, which automatically sends the signals to the office for all the building. So. So I guess technology basically has replaced 7 people in the department.
Kind of a lot like other businesses. It's a lot more automated world today, isn't it?
That's correct. Yeah. It's much better, quite honestly. We have better control over everything. We have less little blips that may cause us to lose pressure or things like that. So.
Bob, talk about the. Obviously, you've got to search for a new person to fill Steve's shoes, and those are big shoes to fill here. How is that going so far?
Well, we're kind of taking it one day at a time. First of all, it's really hard to replace 51 years of knowledge, and so I don't view it as a replacement. I view it as we're just trying to put somebody into that position that's going to have to learn and grow. But Steve has done such a wonderful job over a lifetime, and for me, I've only been in the mayorship for 2 years, but on the city council for a number of years, and realize how important he has been to the city. And I think the other thing that people really need to know is how passionate he is about providing quality water to the city of Beatrice, and he has done that and takes that job seriously. And so to find that replacement that's going to take that job as seriously as he did will be a difficult task.
Steve, look back when you first became superintendent or first started working for the department on the quality issue for what you have to test for. I know you put out a report each year which tells what's in the water, what is within limits. What kind of things do you have to test for?
Well, I started for the department in 1972, and at that time, water quality was excellent. Nitrates are very low. And over the years, we've seen dramatic increase in nitrates. We presently have 2 well fields. One we call the old well field, and one the city farm well field. Presently we get 99.9% of our water from our city farm well field, which is still low in nitrates. And they run typically in the 3 to 4 range, sometimes as high as 5, and 10 is the limit. So we're about half what the limit is. The other well field is just right at the limit for nitrates. So we try not to use the majority of that water. Most of that water goes to Coke Nitrogen and Farmers Co-op and Agrim. And we actually have point-of-use devices that actually remove the nitrates part of their use. So
over the years, have there been elements or chemicals added to the list that you have to test for, or how does that work?
It's unbelievable. They keep adding stuff all the time. We're very fortunate we're not seeing a lot of detects on anything. PFAs are on the horizon right now. We actually just did our first round of testing. I haven't got the results, but PFAs are basically from wrinkle-free clothing, from Teflon pans, anything that is stick-free or wrinkle-free. Mm-hmm. What happens when you wash those items, it gets in the discharge water, which goes in the sewer system, and most of that water is discharged to a stream and eventually ends up in the groundwater.
Yeah.
So.
Before we take a break here, I wanted to talk about, and we were talking a little bit about this before we went on the program, one of the things that's being done prior to your retirement is you're having a map put together of all the work that has been done over the years, all the mains that have been replaced, where they're located. You know, when we go through our jobs on a day-to-day basis, we maybe don't think about it, but then we look back, say, 10, 20 years, and we think, wow, we did all that. That's kind of what you're looking at right now.
Yeah, actually, it'd be about a 51-year history of my career, and I'm going to try to present that to our DPW board on May 1st.
Mm-hmm. What was your first impression when you looked at all this?
I was overwhelmed, and that was only from 91 through 2016, how much we actually done in that time frame. So,
yeah. Okay. Before we take a break, Bob, one comment, and I know we've talked about this before, infrastructure is so important, but it's kind of one of those things that people maybe don't think about all the time because you often don't see it. It's in the ground, or you drive by power lines and things like that every day, but you don't really think about it on a day-to-day basis. But it is one of the most important things.
It really is. I mean, you can do a lot of things above ground, but at the end of the day, you got to have your electricity, you got to have your water, you got to have your sewer and sanitation to really have a good city. And I think Steve just said some of the things people don't realize is not only do we provide that water to all the residents, but think about the commercial use, and we've got it's an economic driver to help create business and industry into the city of Beatrice because of our quality of water and our quantity. And so, at the end of the day, there's a lot of benefits for our water department, and let's face it, because they can do such good work themselves, we've saved, I don't know, Steve, probably how much money we've saved over the years because our guys can do such a good job of putting stuff in. Mm-hmm. So
they do work in all kinds of weather too, right,
yeah,
Steve?
For sure, at all times.
Yeah. So the next time it's like 5 or 10 below and you see a crew out replacing a main, please go up and thank them, I guess. Huh?
Yeah, well, we may not be replacing the main when it's that cold, but we might be repairing one.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. Back with more with Mayor Bob Morgan and City Water Superintendent Steve Kelley in just a moment on KWBE. Back on Ask the Mayor today with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan and special guest Water Superintendent Steve Kelley, who will be retiring here in May. We were talking about the quality aspect of water, Steve, but quantity. As you know, the population of the town has remained fairly stable over the years, but I imagine you've seen difference in the type of volume users of water too. What can you say about the quantity of water the city has available right now and how that looks for the future?
Well, like I said, we have 2 well fields, but the well field we get our drinking water from for City of Beatrice has held up very well. We started using that in '97. We haven't seen any drops and abnormal drops in amount of water out there. There's an adequate supply. We're actually, believe it or not, even though our population is 12,200 range, we're actually using less water today than we were in 1972.
Why is that? Why is it?
That is because of low flow toilets, low flow wash machines, conservation.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, a lot of people don't like lawn sprinklers, but I can remember when I first started the city, I always liked the lawn to look nice. Well, didn't have lawn sprinklers, so I'd put the hose out there. Well, then I'd run 5 hours in one spot. Now I got a sprinkler system. I use much less water with my sprinkler system I did trying to water it by hand.
Just a more efficient way of
Yes.
applying water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and plus, we get into a dry period like we are now. Say like the last couple of years when we're in a moderate to, I don't want to say extreme drought, but we're in a drought of some sort. How has that changed usage of water? Have you seen adjustments of that a lot?
Well, our average water use in the wintertime basically is about 1.2 million gallons. Mm-hmm. We only hit 4 million gallons 3 or 4 days last year. Mm-hmm. And basically our all-time high, believe it or not, was it was in 1990, the year I took over, 6.7 million one day.
Yeah. Is that a middle of the summer reading or
yes.
what? Yeah.
That would have been in July
of
1990.
That day, do you remember how that affected the system as far as water levels in your reservoirs and your tanks? Or were you thinking that, boy, if we keep up at this level, we might be in a little bit of trouble or not?
Yeah, to keep in mind, we didn't have what we call our steady farm well field then. We were depending on our old well field, and that was basically above our max. But we are fortunate we do have 8 million gallons of storage at our reservoirs, mm-hmm. so we were able to tide that over. And shortly after that, we started getting some rain, and the usage went way down. But that's our all-time peak high, 6.7 million one day.
Yeah. The 2 underground reservoirs at 4th and Grant there, I didn't take the trip underground that one time that you guys did with the board and council members, I think. But I would imagine that's quite an experience, quite an eye-opener for people as to storage.
Make sure you got lights when you go down there. I guarantee you that. It's pretty dark down there, but we do light it up. Actually, it will be due to be cleaned again in December of 25. Mm-hmm. We have to clean them, inspect it, and clean if necessary every 5 years.
Are they the same age, or which side of the street is?
No, the North Reservoir, which is a 3 million gallon reservoir, that was the first one built. That was built in 1938. And then the South Reservoir is 5 million. That was built in 1965.
Yeah. You just recently made some improvements there as far as electric improvements, too.
Made some major improvements on the SCADA system, made improvements on electrical with VFDs to run more efficiently.
Mm-hmm. The 2 above-ground towers, the one at 19th, and then the other one's like Mulberry or something like that. Which one was first, or were they built about the same time?
No, the North Tower actually was put in 1965, mm-hmm. and the South Tower was 1981.
I see.
And before that, that's why we had to have more staff, is we didn't have no towers, so you had to sit there and watch the pressure gauge, turn pumps on and off.
Wow.
Whenever the pressure got to a certain level, you turn another pump on. When it got to a max level you want, you shut one off. Mm-hmm. And they had to have that somebody 24/7 watching that, and you just hope they didn't go to sleep. Because
it's kind of like doing live radio before we did recorded stuff. We had to have somebody in the chair all the time. But I remember those days a little bit. There's also maintenance contracts on both of those towers.
Correct.
And you just repainted one not too long ago.
We actually repainted both of them. The North Tower was painted last year. Mm-hmm. The South Tower was painted the previous year. And actually the South Tower was just painted as we're speaking. It's actually the cure time on the inside of the South Tower is painted.
I see.
Next year, the North Tower will be painted on the inside. They don't do them at the same time. Don't ask me why, but that's not the procedure they follow.
Yeah. They even sport logos now, Bob, and it looks kind of neat. I know that was a decision that sometimes people say, well, do you really need to spend money on a logo? But it's a source of pride. When you go to a town, what's one of the first things you notice? The water towers. So it's kind of neat the way that's taking place. So, all right. Yeah. We'll be back with more with Steve Kelley, the water superintendent, and Mayor Bob Morgan on Ask the Mayor in just a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor today with Mayor Bob Morgan and City Water Superintendent Steve Kelley, who will be retiring here in the coming weeks. Steve, I wanted to ask you about, I know in water superintendents you have, I think, an association, or you have organizations in the state that you can learn from and learn what others are doing and things like that. Talk about that a little bit.
American Water Works Association, the Nebraska section, which I'm a member of. And in fact, I actually help them train other water operators. I actually go out and do the CU training for their licenses, which I get hours for mine too at the same time. It's been a great benefit. I've learned how to speak a lot better. As you probably know, I can probably rattle on for a long time. But anyway, it's been great for me. It's a great organization. In fact, this year I'm eligible for the Lifetime Award, which Lifetime Membership Award. So I'll be, any of my retirement, I'll still be a member. So
is that coming up at an annual conference soon?
Yeah, it'll be in November of this year, yes.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned working with hiring operators or helping other communities to hire operators. Is that something you'll continue to do in retirement, or how do you see
They're
that?
trying to get me to do it, and I've already told them I would. So
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So I don't know how much. I was very fortunate that prior managers let me have time from work to do that training. Quite honestly, I learned from those experiences too. But I would spend 6 to 8 days a year doing that training, and I'll probably continue to do that.
As you've had a chance to talk to other superintendents of water departments around the state, do you face some of the same issues, some of the same problems, trade ideas on how to maybe address something a little bit better than you used to? Or?
Yeah, that's where I learn from, is listen to how they do things and see, well, that might work for us. And we try it, and if it does, we use it. If it doesn't, we go back to what we were doing. So, yeah, it's a benefit there. So.
Got to ask you about the mandate on the copper situation and the Flint water crisis and kind of the spillover of that down to water departments the size of the city of Beatrice. You had to, take an inventory recently.
Correct.
How did that come out?
We actually just got it complete. I just got the okay from Tobias yesterday to send it to the state. He wanted to review it before we submitted it. So we did our inventory. We're very fortunate that we did not find one single lead service line in Beatrice.
Wow.
We did two mailings to the customers, and we had about 50% return on their lines. We had to report the customer-owned service line. We had to report the city-owned service line. City-owned service line, we pretty much knew we had from our records, but we had no idea. And the customers nobody ever thought we would ever need that information. So we got about 50% return. I was fortunate and unfortunate at the same time that we had a couple people on light duty from injuries, so we sent them out door to door, and we got the rest.
Wow.
But yeah, we're going to submit it here very shortly. So,
are other towns struggling to get that kind of response, or?
Oh yeah, they're definitely struggling. In fact, some say they haven't even heard about it. I was at a meeting the other day, and they said they hadn't even heard about it, and it's due January 16th of this year.
Oh wow! So it's become kind of a crisis thing now.
Yeah, in a lot of places, the larger communities, Lincoln, Omaha, Grand Island, Kearney, they've got a fair amount of lead. All that lead has to be replaced within 10 years.
Yeah. Got to ask you about as far as say a break in a line or a malfunction or something you had to go out and address. What's the most dramatic one you've ever seen? I think I know what your answer might be, but I'm not sure.
Well, that's Fourth and Grand.
Yeah. I kind of thought that might be on the top of the list.
Yeah, I'd never seen so much water come to one place in my life. Wow. It's right there at our reservoirs, and that's an 18-inch main, and the largest we have in our system, and that goes up Lincoln straight to the towers.
Yeah.
And of course, you had the water from the towers coming on, and it kind of created a vacuum. You had to kick all 6 of our pumps on, so you got all 6 pumps running, plus the water towers feeding that leak, and it was lots of water.
Wow. Right downhill from the underground reservoirs there, too. So somebody told me at the time that, and I didn't see it. I mean, I was there when it was happening, but not right at the moment. Somebody said that slabs of concrete, slid kind of downhill on that, or what?
Well, actually, what happened, one of my employees, I was actually out fishing at that time, and I got a call from my wife that they're trying to get a hold of you to go to 4th and Grand. So I go there, and one of my employees pulled the truck up there, and I said, you better move that truck. We shut the valves off to kill the water from coming, and the concrete just collapsed because the water pressure was basically holding the concrete up.
Wow. How much water do you think leaked out in that one shot?
I have no idea.
That was pretty big. I do remember that. It was
we had we had to replace that whole block of street there, and plus we replaced the water main too.
Yeah, that didn't seem to take the job. I mean, it took some time, but not as much as you might think. You had the work done pretty quick on that. Didn't you?
Well, we were able to isolate that leak, and we actually pumped from our north reservoir. At that time, we were able to still feed the town, but instead of going into the 18-inch pipe, we had to feed the whole town with a 12-inch. Mm-hmm. So what we ended up doing, we actually replaced the 12 into the 18 at the time. Part of it's 16 and part of it's 18. But we actually put a temporary pipe out of the north reservoir above ground and went over and tied into that 18 just north of Grant Street. And we actually fed that through that temporary pipe while we replaced all that water main.
I see. Yeah. Water superintendents, that's probably a nightmare situation, one of those.
Yeah. And it was actually a nightmare for Neil Needfield at the time because he'd only been city administrator for less than 6 months, and that happened to him. So
welcome to Beatrice. Timing is everything. Of course, we all know about and it was privately contracted, the downtown water main work this past year. But I wanted to ask you also about the transmission project from northwest of town here and the benefits that'll have for the city.
Well, currently, like I mentioned, we get our water from our city farm well field, and we actually laid that transmission line out to that. That was 9 miles of pipeline we put in ourselves. But if that would ever malfunction or break or had to be out of service for some reason, then all the water we'd have available would be the higher nitrate water from the old well field. So we checked into running a new line, that second line. Well, that was too expensive. It was several $1 million. I mean, I can't remember exactly, but somewhere between 50 and 20 million to run that line. So we decided to interconnect, because there is a transmission line that comes to town from that well field, but right now we're virtually not using it. So I come up with the idea of interconnecting them. And we haven't had any problems with that transmission main. So we actually run a little over a mile, about a mile and a quarter of pipeline from one well field to the other, and we're using that pipeline. Yeah. That costs us, I think, it's slightly less than $2 million.
Yeah, and a lot of that was funded through that state loan.
Correct.
Water, so it made it possible to do the project.
Yeah, another thing we did out there with that state money. Not only did that, but we also purchased 174 acres for adjacent to our well field for additional wells down in the future if they're ever needed. So,
do you think that will be needed in the next decade or two, or what's the thought on that?
Not unless something changes dramatically.
Like you get some substantial growth and big users, or things
we're typically only average 2 million gallons a day in town. We can actually pump 5 million gallons, according to our permit, a day from that well field, a maximum of 8 million in one day, but we can average 5 million over the year.
I see.
So we got long ways for growth.
Yeah. So what's in retirement for Steve Kelley? Are you gonna be bored, or you got a lot of things lined up to do?
Well, I'll probably hit the golf course a little more than I have been doing, for one thing. More likely, I'll probably be working part-time for Olson Engineering in Lincoln, doing some inspections for them.
Yeah.
We've already talked, and I think it's going to work out. So we'll see. So
Maybe doing some training of a water superintendent or something like that.
Well, keep in mind, I drink the water. I got a lot of, I guess, lifetime in running this department.
Yeah.
And if I have a question to ask, I'm going to answer it.
Yeah. Good. One topic of another thing, just to maybe update Bob before we wrap up. South 13th. I haven't been down there to look at it yet lately, but I understand the curbing was in. What, they had poured the west side of it, or has it, or are they starting on that?
Up to Country Club Lane.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is it? How's it coming along?
I think they're doing pretty good progress.
Yeah.
They're staying on it. I noticed even with a little rain this morning, they were there working on that intersection by the country club there. So, yeah.
So ahead of schedule, about on schedule, or how do you know?
That I don't know.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was sitting here listening to Steve talk, and it's one of those things that I think we try, or at least I try to strive, is you think about back in 1938 or in 1981 when you put up those towers, it wasn't cheap.
No.
But at the end of the day, that was a plan for putting the city in the best spot for 50 years or 60 years or 100 years. Yeah. And so sometimes when we have to spend some money to do some things, it's really not for today, but it's for 20 years down the road.
Yeah.
And, that foresight is invaluable. Just like Steve's foresight of figuring out, hey, we got this big blowout at 4th and Grant, but if we do this, this, and this, the city's back working. So takes a pretty good mind to sit there and go, okay, how do I troubleshoot this and get it done?
Kind of along that same line, one of the newest additions, the school out there, one of your last projects, Steve, is some work in that area as well, too.
Yeah. It's actually planned to run a 12-inch main down 33rd Street. Because right now we have a dead-end main on Lincoln, a 10-inch, and we have a 12-inch main dead end down on Court. Well, dead ends aren't the best, so we want to interconnect them so we got constant flow. It helps feed all areas, whatever. But we were going to wait until all the street project was done and stuff like that. But we didn't want to go back and have to tear the school property all back up once it's all seeded and basically graded, whatever. So it's actually in. We just got 3 services to hook over. We probably should have them done by the end of next week.
All right. Well, we're out of time today, Steve. Best of wishes in retirement. Thanks for your service all these years to the city and more than 5 decades. Bob, thanks for bringing in Steve today.
Well, I'm glad he joined us, and I wish him well in retirement. I understand that retirement's a whole other life that you kind of do, but sounds like you got a couple of good things in the works. So and maybe a little fishing.
Yes, definitely.
There you go.
So, thank you.
All right. Steve Kelley, Water Superintendent, and Mayor Bob Morgan on Ask the Mayor today.